Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always, I'm joined by Savon Jones, aka Captain Bonnie, and award-winning director Brian Redondo. This is episode 187, and we have friends everywhere as we discuss Andor Season 2. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and, well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen! Welcome back. It's Confidently Wrong. We took a week off, so we are back in the mix, and we're excited. I'm excited, at least, because we're going to talk about what I think has been one of the best shows I've seen in a long time. We are talking about Andor Season 2. Savon, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Brian, what's up?
Hello. That was quite the intro.
Yeah, we were hearing some yappies in the background. What happened?
I realized that I could yap at you guys to express my dismay with the two of you rather than using words. I just felt it was more efficient to be like, yeah.
Is that what happened? But your mouth wasn't moving, so...
Yeah, I also got into ventriloquy. I have a puppet over here that looks just like me, but like 2 feet tall and in a tuxedo. I'll show you guys later.
That's amazing.
Can
you imagine?
I'm going to bring it on the road.
Can you imagine if you walked around with a ventriloquist puppet of yourself?
Had
the puppet talk for you all the time?
I think it would fit right in on the subway, to be honest. It might be a
Kareem could interview you.
Good buffer, actually.
You're going to be like, what's your hot take? Everybody should have a ventriloquist puppet.
Let the dummies do the talking.
They already do. You got a puppy though.
I did.
It's a little
one.
Is she the cutest? Is she the best?
We got it when she was 8 weeks old, and she is absolutely adorable.
Amazing.
She has puppy dog eyes. Surprise,
Aww.
surprise. And she can also equally be a terror. So that's wonderful.
Okay. All right.
Who doesn't love that?
Nice. Well, we're happy for you. We hope that it's Una, right?
Una, yeah.
I hope that Una brings you all the love.
Because she is the one.
Okay.
Do you not know how language works, Wes?
I don't know if you can feminize the word, the number one, but
do you know how language works, Wes?
Do it. I love it. All
I
right.
don't think you know how language works.
I guess
purposely up to sometimes.
We understand you are not a Spanish teacher, so
that's true.
We get it.
I do try to learn Spanish from the kids, though. So because my brain is broken and I never remember anything, I just remember the feelings I had because I loved Andor Season 1. I thought it was brilliant. Specifically, like the prison break episodes or the prison episodes where they're on, I think it's like Narkina 5 or something like that. And it turns out that they're making parts for that turned out to be the
remember
Death Star.
that?
Bro. Because that was such a big reveal. It was amazing. Can you give us more of a maybe an overall recap synopsis of what happened in Season 1 to catch us up?
You remember the name of the prison?
There will be spoilers after this, so get ready. Savon, your face right now. What is going on?
Yeah, I can't believe you even remember the name of the prison.
Hey, bro, I'm in it.
Are you?
Aldani? Remember Aldani?
So it sounds like you do remember Season 1. So we were talking before we started recording who was going to do the synopses, and I backed out. Wes backed out.
Yeah, absolutely. My brain is.
We voluntold Savon
to
do it.
He has a great memory.
But it turns out, Wes, it sounds like you know everything that happened in Season 1, and you remember really well.
I don't remember what happened after the prison, though. There was like a whole other arc, wasn't there?
Not really. Like
no?
Wes is, he goes back and then like Wes is really the kind of dude who will forget his like child's name, but remembers what he had for lunch 2 weeks ago. That's what this is giving, Wes.
It was the
most useless form of good memory possible. I'm like, man, so close.
All right, what happened in season 1?
Anyways, so season 1 of Andor, for folks who don't know, Andor takes place in the years leading up to the original Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, just for timeline purposes, right? And we know that we've met these characters in the movie Rogue One, which is kind of the conclusion of the story, kicking off the rebellion. Andor starts with that's a tough word. Somebody help me out.
Titular?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't know it's pronounced. Thank you. The titular character, Cassian Andor, is a regular dude in the galaxy, grew up within a tribe of indigenous folks on a planet that was ruined by Imperial mining. That is the start of his story of how the Empire kind of upended his life. And season 1 is really following his story of being displaced by the Empire, trying to find his own way to frankly live in relative quiet and peace, but then realizing that when there is fascism and the Empire is as powerful as it is, there is no turning back. And through a series of events that involves him meeting some unlikely allies, getting falsely thrown in prison, ultimately breaking out, he realizes that he needs to be a part of something bigger than himself. And the season ends with him now joining a loose collection of folks who are going to be the upstarts of what is the Rebel Alliance.
I love it. That was a great synopsis.
I do what I can.
See, we picked the right person.
Was
Brian.
that Chat GPT that you were reading off?
That was okay. First of all, that's disrespectful. I am a person. I learned words the old-fashioned way through books and being told if I said something wrong.
Have you heard of the word eponymous?
I feel like I have to read it. No, it doesn't have
EPO. It looks like Epony mouse.
I can't.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Well, eponymous is also a similar word. It's I had to look up the definition, but it's being of or relating to bearing the name of an eponym or of the person. So like Wendy's, right? Like named after the person.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Thanks for this SAT cram session.
Yeah, the Jeffersons or whatever.
I was just wondering if like this would count as that. Like the show is named after Andor, so is it eponymous? Maybe. I'm not sure.
Probably, but
anonymous.
Don't worry, we have lots of other,
All right, let's get it going. So, Savon had a format question to start off with, which was the way that they released this on Disney Plus was 3 episodes at a time. There was 4 weeks of episodes, so 12 episodes total. Did we enjoy this format of storytelling and pacing? Also, I think people who have seen the show will realize that like each one sort of gives you. They're all those 3 that got released at the same time are all connected within the same few days or so. And then there's a big time jump in between, about a year or so between each one. Did that work for you? Did you like that? I want to start off by saying for parents and people who are working full time, it was awful. And trying to watch the NBA playoffs, trying to fit in 3 episodes in 1 week, made it feel a little bit more like a chore than enjoyable. I really,
they're an hour. These not short episodes. It's not 30-minute, 45-minute. They are like 50. The shortest episode is 45 minutes.
And longtime listeners of the show will know that I like to binge shows. That is something that I like to do. And Savon has always been a proponent of take your time, let it breathe. It's must-see TV. It could be the appointment television. You can all talk about it in between, and
water cooler talk, baby.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. After having this one come out 3 at a time, I'm like, yo, Savon was right. 4 years ago, when we started this, Savon was right. It should have been a 1 episode a week show, and like you two haven't even finished it. So like that, I feel like that's even more evidence that it should have been 1 a week.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know it was 12 episodes. I tried to binge 9 episodes this week, which I successfully did, mind you.
Yeah.
But I too was like, holy crap, this is a lot.
They got a 4
and they released this in 4 weeks time.
They got a 4-quarter, goddamn.
Yeah.
I mean, the Knicks went to overtime the other night. This is like totally ruined my schedule.
To lose.
That was miserable. But I totally agree. Like this show is like really well made and made to be. Stop choking on your own dick, man. This show is made to be like it's a very refined version of Star Wars storytelling, and the fact that they don't allow the audience the time and space to appreciate every single episode in all its glory. I some episodes are better than others, but like there's a lot of detail and effort that they're putting into each one of these.
A ton.
And I think it could be that water cooler show if they try to like promote it that way and also release it that way. Like it, like let these episodes stand alone. Let us have time to understand and appreciate what's going on and chatter about what we hope is going to happen next week. And they could drag this out for 3 months, and I think it would be excellent. That'd be a much better watching experience, I think, for this.
I talked to Battlefield Mike about that, and he loved how they did it this way. As he was like, I just wanted to know what happened next, and so having like those 3 that all fit together in one nice story gave him the option of like watching it as a movie and watching it all as one section. And he said he really enjoyed that way that they did that. Given that Mike's schedule is a little bit different, right, than mine. I was like, I did not like that at all, but he was like, it was really great for someone with my kind of schedule where it's like really flexible. And he could just like dive in deep and like really immerse himself in that world for a longer period of time. So I kind of get that, but yeah, I don't know. Savon, are you on the typical Savon side of it should have been allowed to breathe?
I mean, yeah, so a mixed bag, right? I think from a narrative storytelling,
he wears boxers, not briefs.
Facts.
What?
I'm a boxer briefs guy. Anyways, I thought
allow it to breathe.
I thought it was good as far as the story they wanted to tell. Okay. I like the idea of the 3 episodes that take place in the same era or time span, however you want to do it. Clearly, things taking place at the same time.
They add up to one vignette, right? Basically.
Yeah, but in terms of just chronological wise, they're taking place in a set snapshot of time, right? Because each of the 4 chunks is each a year leading up to Rebellion. So them even starting out with 4 years before, 5 years before building up, I thought that was really good storytelling. I think from a pacing perspective, it lets you cover a lot of ground of how the rebels really move over the span of time without wasting too much time with maybe the nitty-gritty details that would just take up time for the larger story and, the character telling moments, right? So I like that we get to see over the span of this show, Yavin 4 go from just a place with a bunch of disorganized local guerrillas with no type of organizational structure. And, we get the bomb drop once your boy leaves the planet that, this is Yavin 4, which we know from, if you're an OG Star Wars fan, is one of the most consequential places for the Rebel Alliance. And so, in one sense, it's dope that you get to see Yavin build up every 3rd episode, right? You see a skip forward and you see, they've grown resources. People have clearly done a lot of off-screen development. Even like Wilson was a great example, right? If you really see Wilson go from this quiet, meek whatever to getting more and more radicalized to where he's a full hard-on badass by the time we get to, episode 8, where I kind of slowed down a bit, right? So they were able to, and this is similar to how House of the Dragon worked a little bit too, where I think if you do time skips right, you can cover a lot of ground and advance the story in a way that doesn't leave you stuck in this one spot in time that maybe has some important things happen, but not all of the key important things, right? Like they clearly had major stuff that needed to happen over a 5-year story course that they, I think, split up in a very good way. I think one of my favorite elements of Andor was that we see the stuff about the Gormans from the very beginning, and you see them lay out their plan, but because of the time skips, you get to actually see the plan coming to fruition in chunks. And you watch Gorman change from, you see this silly infomercial about spider webs to them being a full-on fascist regime taking over, all the stuff happening, right? But like, I think if they had locked themselves to a smaller span of time, that would have been far less believable, far harder to pull off. And I think it would have just hurt the long-form story that they're trying to tell. So I think from a writing perspective, 3 chunks with time skips in between was great. And when I saw that they were doing it, I immediately fell in love because I'm like, so much has happened, and we get to move the story forward and see Andor go from, okay, he wants to be a rebel, to, okay, he still has some things to learn, to, he's kind of badass, but he's not the fully realized version we see in Rogue One, to where now, at least where I'm at in episode 8, and I'm like, this is another transformational moment for Andor. And once I see him again another year later, I can assume that sparked him being a damn near different type of character, but still familiar. So that was masterful, and was probably one of the strongest points of the show. I think from a viewing perspective, it's a lot weaker. I think 3 hours of show running a week is hard to talk with people about. Again, folks, even to Mike's point, yeah, you might be able to take it at your own pace, but again, you're back to your original problem of you're not in a space to be able to discuss the show with people. And when were the episodes coming out? Was it Tuesdays? Was it Wednesdays? Do you recall?
Tuesday nights, I think.
So yeah. Tuesday. So in fairness, Tuesday. I mean, they probably did it Tuesday to give you time leading up until Monday for when you do the water cooler work talk. But the reality is, with all the things that's fighting for our attention, including the NBA finals, the conference finals, which that'll take up a whole night right off the bat. Like, oh, cool, I'm watching a game. I'm not watching nothing else tonight. So, ultimately, I'm kind of torn. It was good for the sake of the story, weaker in terms of audience being able to sit and digest it. And these are really deep, long-form episodes. It's not like it's some 30-minute ones. They're an hour. They're dense. Lots of shit happens. If you don't watch one, you can't discuss it. You and I, the three of us could have easily have had it come out on Tuesday, and then Brian had time to watch one episode. Wes had time for all three. I saw two, and we can't even really have a conversation about it. Yeah. And then by the time Tuesday comes around, another 3 episodes are out. And now you're just like, you got to play catch up of, if I'm even 1 episode behind, I got another 4 episodes to catch up on. And so
they stack up real quick.
It stacks up really quick. Even now, we tried to prep, but 12 episodes, with all the other stuff we got going on, that's a tall ask. But I don't know. I got mixed feelings. Because the triple
surprisingly nuanced. I thought you would have just been like, nope, should have been a week.
Well, the release schedule made sense with the way the story was being told, so I'm a little more accepting of like, okay, it's not like they're just doing it the way they did the release. It felt like, oh, okay, cool. These are segmented stories, so it makes sense to release it that way. It's just the stories were really dense, and which is like, it's not the worst problem to have. It's just like, hey, man, y'all show is really dense, and like you got to really lock in your brain, and it's just gonna be hard for folks to do that in a week.
I wonder if there was some other reason they did it, like because the showrunner Tony Gilroy, who wrote most of it, has said that was a not wrote most of it. I don't know. Yeah, he produced it. He said that was a Disney decision. So I don't know how that helps them. Like, does that help it not step on the toes of other Marvel projects that are coming out, or like what they were sort of envisioning there, like why they wanted to fit the show in this pocket of space, or pocket of time?
I think they don't like their shows competing against each other for one thing, right? Like I think they like to keep their calendar straight through, right? So you get like some MCU show that takes over for a couple months, and you get some Star Wars thing that takes over for another couple, and then back to an MCU show or whatever. And I do know that Ironheart is right around the corner, so maybe that plays into this idea, right? They're really trying not to overlap their few competing like fanboy properties.
When does Ironheart release? June 24th. So we got about a month. I don't know. They might have timed it so they could have got right up to Ironheart, actually. But maybe they wanted a break in between. I'm not sure. All right. Let's keep going. That's enough about format. We can't hear you, Savon.
It would have lost steam. 12 weeks of...
You think it would have lost steam?
Yeah, it would have lost steam. 12 weeks of that with like the 1-hour episodes. And again, I said it before. Nobody wants to hear the uncomfortable truth. Andor is good, but the shit kind of boring. Would you have wanted to do 3 months of that? A lot of people would have been like, yo, I've been watching this for weeks, and all I've watched is like a really annoying mom, belittle her son, and I gotta wait another week just to watch another hour. Like,
that's such a bad take, but yeah. I mean, I could see people doing that.
It's a slow burn.
I've talked to people who find it boring. Kendall doesn't like it.
That's not a terrible take. The shit is a slow burn, and
no, I mean it's a terrible take for someone to be like, all I saw was a mom berate her son, like.
No, I watched that shit and I was like, yo, this is kind of boring.
I felt like we were at that wedding for a very long time.
I was like, okay, I get it. The wedding sucks. Mom Mothma is struggling. She gonna get... Okay, it's like one of those... I get what some of the scenes were intended to do, but I won't pretend like that doesn't mean that it needed to drag on or go on as long as it did without me losing interest. Like, that's just...
Interesting. I was locked in 100% of the time. All right. So wait, Savon, you got to explain this to me. We got a huge cast of cameos and Star Wars All-Stars. Who had the coolest arc so far? My confusion around this question that you proposed was I didn't feel like this show had any Star Wars All-Stars, right? It doesn't have any of the Skywalkers or Han Solo or even like Lando or Darth Vader, right? Those big name characters don't appear. The Emperor is mentioned but never shows his face, or we're never seen him on screen. So what were you sort of envisioning there?
This is a trap. Let's just talk about our favorite characters.
Okay.
Well, there was Bail Organa.
I know. Look, Brian, this is a trap. That's clearly we have different all-star definitions, and this is going to turn into an all-star debate. Who were our favorite characters? Okay. I'm sorry. I worded the question that way. I'm sorry. Okay. I thought Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and they're even all-stars. Your boy Fennec from Rogue One. I thought that these being named characters we've seen in other productions was
gotcha.
enough of an all-star. But if it's not, that's cool.
All right. Favorite? You're saying favorite character? Who stood out?
We got Saw Gerrera. I'm just saying. I thought that these were. Anyways.
All right.
I was hoping for more with Saw Gerrera. Like he just pops into like that one episode, I think.
I guess he's just meant to be the glue. We got him. We got him in.
And he's just like high on gasoline. Like I don't even know what the heck was going on in that. Like,
yeah, he's dude, going insane and paranoid.
Lay off the petrol.
Yeah, he was like. All right, so I would say my favorite character, in terms of like the moments that they had, was Cyril. He's not my favorite character in the show, like in general, because he doesn't like move the story forward a ton. But him having this arc of I don't feel like I'm heard, feeling very much about like the rules and following the rules and trusting in the system and feeling like those who enforce the law should be respected at all times in episode or in season 1 to season 2, where it's like, I need to uphold the name of the Empire. I want to promote my career. I'm in love with Dedra Meero. To having all of that, I think if you're in the middle of episode 8, Savon, you're in the middle. You finished episode 8, so that's the one where he gets his due, right? So like to that point where he's like he comes face to face with this man he's been hunting for years and years, and it turns out that he has no idea. Andor has no idea who Cyril Karn is. He doesn't recognize him at all, and it's just like, yo, why are you like griefing me so bad here? Like, what am I to you, and who are you? You know, and that just completely destroys his sense of self, like what he's been doing, and punctures his entire, like it deflates his entire being to the point where he just puts his gun down and would have just basically walked away if he hadn't been killed, you know, in the next moment. Was just like complete bonkers to me, just that you'd have this story around this dude who's just kind of, his life is so miserable in some senses and is starting to look up, and then all of a sudden he realized it was all for nothing and that he doesn't actually believe anymore in the things that he thought he really believed in. Just like, wow, masterfully done. I couldn't believe that they managed to pull that kind of story arc off with him. And I think it's a kind of an illustration of how good this show was in a lot of senses. Because of how much we got stuff for Clea, we got stuff for Andor, we got stuff for Bix, Luthen, right? Like all of these moments of having these characters change over time, Mon Mothma, right? And you guys, or Savon said maybe it was a little bit boring, but I didn't think so. I thought it was just like captivating the entire time. So that's where I'm at on these characters, but I wanted to highlight Cyril's moment. You guys can feel free to highlight a different character. Brian, where did you find joy in these characters?
I'm going to give a cop-out answer. I did not think that there were such strong character arcs that you're talking about. Like, I think there were moments, right, for Luthen. There was moments for Mon Mothma or whatever. But I didn't necessarily think there was like this. Oh, that's super cool like full complete arc that they're going through over the course of the season. Maybe only really Cassian gets that to some extent, right? Because you see how conflicted he is. But really, to me, the thing that takes the cake is the arc of fascism in all of this, like
the fascism arc. That's the real favorite character.
Yeah, that was the most interesting thing that happened. It's just like the slow creep of dastardly, diabolical fascism at play. That was like just slowly, like putting its tendrils around, you know, like the body politic, around like all the citizenry of the galaxies, and just getting crushed. And seeing all those machinations come into play over a long period of time, right? Like everything that they had planned for Gorman just going to plan to a T, like every little bit of it. And how, you know, how evil that was. But at the same time, like kind of masterful. I thought that was the most interesting part of the show for me so far. And then, you know, kind of like to match that was how much more militant the rebellion gets as a response. And, you know, just like seeing those two big concepts that, you know, we think about when you go to school or when you read the news, but seeing them play out over the course of the show in ways that were like really shocking or really exciting, or just really cool in some senses, right? Like when Andor is like talking down the Gorman uprising, and like, you guys are like too late, you're too eager, and you're too noob for this. You're just gonna get yourselves killed, right? Like just seeing that level of conversation as part of how these things transpire over time, I think was to me, that's like the appeal. That's the fun watch going on.
That was such an interesting thing, right? Because in some ways he was dissuading revolution and rebellion in them, even though he is someone who is advocating for rebellion and the overthrow of the Empire.
Well, he's saying like he wants to win, right? Yeah. And he's looking at them like, you guys are not in a position to do so, and you're just going to die. So what's the point of that?
Right.
Whereas Luthen, of course, is like, well, the point is that they're going to be martyrs.
Yeah.
That is also chilling.
Well, yeah. Well, let me interject in that, like, that also at that stage, you know, some of this is also reflecting Andor's own development. He was where they were at one point in the story. You could argue earlier in the season or even in season 1, that was him at one point, right? Of maybe less so season 1 because he was kind of trying to stay out of it, but definitely late season 1, early season 2 for certain, where you see that the rebels have to kind of have this balance between idealism and then cold pragmatism. And that's a very consistent theme throughout the series is rebellions are built on hope, and hearing that nugget from the hotel bellhop guy. And it's like, oh man, that's an iconic line that just comes from a dude. And that really underscores the idealistic part of fighting for something bigger than yourself and hoping because that's all you can do, along with the other side of like, hey, cool, that's all nice and all, but the Empire is damn near omnipresent, has unlimited resources. To your point, when he calls them out of like, okay, you make contact with me, the Empire false flags, lies, feeds information. I could have been a trap. All this could have easily went ass up before we, you know, just from y'all coming up to introduce me. Which was,
and he's right. They were feeding them false information.
Yeah, because we the viewer see that we're watching the Empire behind. So we're like, we know the danger of the Empire, but it's wild to see these rebels who on paper are so idealistic, and you realize, oh man, they don't know what the hell they're getting into. But that was a good contrast of how they handled the rebels, of balancing being pragmatic and having to make hard choices and kill people and, you know, take the shot, versus also, how do we not lose ourselves in this war? Because even Mon Mothma has a really dope line of, we have to live with what we did to win. Something along the lines of like, yes, we can win, but we have to also live with what we've done to win. And, you know, what does it look like to, you know, when do the ends not justify the means? When do you start to look more like the villain? The Empire is very clearly the antagonistic force in this show, but you have lots of characters on the rebel side who aren't villains, but the gray, you know, again, even Andor himself says, you know, tells Wilson, hey, you know, Luthen's not the bad guy. And Andor's like, I know, it'd be easier if he was, because they really lean into how gray this all gets. So Luthen's fighting for a good cause, but dude, basically it comes down to the classic.
He executes people.
Yeah, but then it comes down to that same old $1 billion question for any rebel that have any rebel group in like history or fiction. Do the ends justify the means? And I like that they've been able to explore that without just popping that question into our face.
Yeah.
We watch the rebels do shit and we decide, ooh, was that going too far?
Yeah. Are you down with firebombing?
Hey,
are you cool with that?
Hey, would you have executed, like, even Andor gets called out by Bix of saying, hey, you killed that kid or killed that dude, not because it was the right thing, because he saw my face. But then then he even says, what's the difference? And it's like, yo, we're getting into that really gray area of you're fighting for something, but how do you do that while also being selfless and not caring about yourself, but also not becoming a droid, essentially? Like, it's a very cool meta story that they explore with all the characters without directly asking you or making it a topic of convo. You see it more from just their conflictions and frustrations. And I want to stay and fight, but also I don't want to leave this person behind. It's like that balance of the rebel versus your humanity. And that was, I think, that even for characters who I wasn't super invested in for their story, I liked that was a consistent conflict. Even the bellhop of just a bit character, but man, you could really see them going through a lot of turmoil in a couple episodes they appear. But I wanted to highlight that. Also, just because we're talking about favorite character, I wanted to highlight Cyril as well. Cyril and Dedra were probably... Dedra? Is her name? Dedra? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cyril and Dedra. Cyril and Dedra were probably my favorite characters throughout Andor. Yeah. That was a really cool just deconstruction of how people in systems can enable fascism, even if they don't inherently agree with it all. Dedra. And how a person who is not a bad person,
your personal rewards and benefits are in line with what the evil empire is doing, right? Like, you're just like, this benefits me, so I'm willing to do it, and I kind of believe in the system overall.
Well, for Dedra maybe, but I think that's what makes Cyril so interesting, is that I think Dedra is a little bit more lawful evil compared to, Cyril, who I think really is just a victim in all of this. I don't think he was ever a bad person or malicious. I think he was someone who believed in the rule of law and order and having systems, but that doesn't make you a bad person. He just believed in a system that was tyrannical and evil and, also was manipulated by it. Keep in mind, all the stuff with him infiltrating the people and all that, he was literally being lied and manipulated and taken advantage of by his girlfriend. So
yeah.
I never thought Cyril would be my favorite character, but he was a very good portrayal of someone who can be a victim of a system and enable it and uphold it, but it doesn't inherently make him a bad person. I don't think there was ever any one point in the story where Cyril was evil, mustache twisting, maliciously trying to hurt people.
But
even in the start,
he's still complicit and still responsible.
I never once absolved him of responsibility, but I think there's a difference between someone doing something bad incidentally and someone making a choice of like, I know this is going to bring harm. In his mind, he really did think he was doing, the good work.
He's a self-righteous Boy Scout.
Yeah, but like, I don't think that makes you a bad person, because the self-righteous Boy Scout could easily be someone who's helping be like, there's a universe where he could have been a great asset to the Rebel Alliance too. It's one of those people I like that they're doing a good job of just the Empire isn't just all twist your mustache evil. There's regular working day folks who are manipulated and taken advantage of, and that's how they do what they do. So yeah, some people aren't great, but they're not just all, there's clearly levels to the evil within the Empire, and I like that we got to explore that nuance. And as frustrating, and even the mom, as annoying as Cyril's mom was, I like that she was to show how every person is manipulated by propaganda and all that. I thought that was all very well done, and kind of to Wes's point, did not think Cyril and Dedra would turn out to be my favorite characters in Andor by like a pretty decent long shot. Like the ending of Cyril's arc being him finally deconstructing the fascism that he's enabled, having his final
realizing,
having his come to Jesus moment, and and you can see the gears turning in real time of like,
oh no,
hey
I
man,
think I did this.
You have been played.
Yeah.
And he dies before it's too late by the person who he was unknowingly being manipulated into manipulating. And it's like, oh, the Empire is just so, there's no one but victims here. So Cyril, that really, like, the end of his argument had me feeling just a very empty, sad feeling of like, man, he did not deserve, this is a really shitty way to go out.
On the other side of that, can you guys talk to me about Dedra? Because to me, I always felt like she was cold as ice, bureaucrat, ready to like carry out the mission, whatever. She's in control, but you know, she's got ice in her veins. And so she gets really rattled by the Gorman massacre. And I kind of thought that like her response to it felt really surprising and out of character for who was being presented to us before, right? Like I thought, you know, that she totally knew what was up and what was going to happen. Like, why does she suddenly have qualms about, you know, the Empire moving in as quickly as they are, and seems to be second guessing, you know, the massacre. Obviously, of course, like they're trying to say like, yes, it's that horrible that she's shook. But like, did they give us enough with her character for us to believe that? Like, does she actually have a moral compass? Like, I never got that from her.
Can I take this one?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. So how I interpret this one, Brian, is that there is and I kind of look at this almost through D&D alignment chart lens, right? There is a difference between a character who is evil within the confines of the law versus someone who would just go up and kick a puppy. You know, like there's different types of evil, right?
Oh, poor Una.
Kick my dog.
Yeah, it's not that hypothetical. This is, anyways.
I'll kick you back.
How I interpret the things with her is that, keep in mind, we got some context about her life, right? She grew up with no family in an imperial kinder block, so she really doesn't know any better in terms of just the empathy, affection stuff. That's why she moves so cold as ice. I think it's a nurture versus nature type thing with her. Kind of almost how you see Finn even in in the new, like he was a stormtrooper, but clearly there's an underlying humanity that was like, all right, that supersedes whatever my training was, because she grew up imperial, she knew nothing else, right? No family, kinder block, Empire is all she's known. So bam, right there, you already got someone who, they're a part of the government, sure, but like, that doesn't mean that you know the awful things they're doing or that you're even like okay or complicit with it. You know, my mom's a government worker, but that doesn't mean that she's behind whatever the hell the CIA is doing. You know, like the government is big. So I think that's one element of it. She's proven herself to be a problem solver and a company woman because that's all she knows. But we never really see her do kick the puppy evil type moments. Anything she does that we consider evil is in service to her job. But from what she knows about her job, she's just out here trying to promote order and peace and, you know, stability and all that. Like,
what happened what was her role in Ferrix? Did she know about like the torture and about like that they were trying to set up this like slaughter in Ferrix?
I think she knew about the torture and all that, but again, I think from her mind it was from their perspective. Thing. Oh, not even one off. No, I just think it's
and, like, valuable information.
These are people who are terrorists and enemies of our government.
Yeah,
torturing them isn't exactly high on my list of, again, there are people who work for the United States government right now, our family and friends and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that they're okay or knowledgeable of torture that the government might be doing. Like, you have to really, I think for this, Brian, you really got to think of the government as like a big non-hyper-connected entity the way real governments are. Of like, there's just bureaucrats and regular folks. But the big thing for her is that she never, like, she's indoctrinated and she's with it, but she's never shown to be cruel, which I think there is a big distinction between someone who will do things that are maybe unjust on paper versus being just straight up okay with like just straight up murdering and slaughter of civilians. Like, that's just straight up. I know they're all bad, but there is a difference between working for a shitty government and just doing your job versus the literal murder of innocents and that being the plan all along. Like, I think even in the start of the series, you could kind of tell she probably didn't even want the... She didn't want the post. But that's because she had other stuff. She wanted to catch your boy Axis. So it's not like she didn't want to be a part of that. But like, even in her body language, you could kind of tell she didn't want it to come to what the Empire knew it was going to come to. She was kind of hoping maybe they find an alternative. Maybe they don't need to get this mineral or whatever. So I guess how I ultimately see her is company person disconnected from the harm she's doing, a part of an oppressive system that she actively upholds and strengthens and gives ideas to. But there's still a far cry between people who do that and being okay with the most extreme version of just outright genocide, which again is high-key a reflection of a lot of folks in our real government and real governments. You know, they're okay with being a climber for their career, even if it's stepping on and over people. And maybe they do have some line that they consider of like, okay, this is a step. Maybe they do have a line of this is a step too far. And it's like, okay, cool. This is a step too far. It doesn't make you good, but it shows that there's nuance within evil. Like that's the biggest takeaway of Andor is like, there's lots of evil, but there's a difference between Cyril and Dedra and Finnick and then the Emperor. Like, yeah, sure, they're all antagonists. It is a sliding scale, like a MF with differing levels of, you know, agency that they have. But
that's true.
She never came off as cruel. And
she had always traditionally been based in Coruscant, and I realized that Gorman was the first time that she was stationed in the field and witnessing things. Like I don't think she ever stepped foot on Ferrix.
She did. She is part of the mob, and that's how her and Cyril end up.
Because she saves him. Yeah,
he saves her.
Okay, wrong there.
But it's the same way military generals will push all the buttons instead of who gets to die. But then if you see them out there in the field with the people, they might feel a little differently about it. Like it's the same, just the reality.
Well, and they brought in Gorman. They bring in that other dude in the black uniform to do the actual like military crackdown.
Yeah, you can tell that guy's evil. He's got a scar on his face.
Yeah, and you can even
that's how you know.
Yeah, and they planted seeds. Like even she points out, hey, these dudes are barely trained. Like she's still about the rule of law, but she's about doing it with. Like, she's not about the bad faith, false flag, manipulation shit. At least not like that. She's like, okay, if we're going to do it, it's because the crowd is actually out of control.
Yes.
But she clearly was never...
They have to deserve it still in her mind.
In her mind, yeah. In her mind. And for her, as much of a dick as she is, even she was like, hey, yo, B, this ain't cool.
Yeah.
We set this entire thing up and, you know, like, humans have limits.
I think she also, because right before that is when Cyril is like, what did you do? Right? Like, that's the moment where he kind of breaks up with her. So she's already...
With a chokehold?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's already off of her... That was wild. I didn't necessarily agree with that choice. But I think she's already feeling like, wait a second. Have I really, like... Did I really mess this up? Right? And so I think
are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's having that moment. And so I think you're right. Like, she is feeling... a lot like, oh, this wasn't the way that like I envisioned this going, and I didn't think this was what we were working towards, and she's realizing like, no, actually this was what we were working towards, and I got played a little bit, but I also like played my part too well.
Yeah, she thought it was like okay, this is the last ditch option that we'll avoid at all costs if possible, because that's just not how you want to do shit.
In her mind, she's like, all we need to do is get this like crystal or whatever they're looking for, right? The mineral. You don't need to kill a bunch of people to get the mineral.
Yeah, she had,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And the Empire knew from and she realized the Empire from the beginning already knew, hey, man, we could tell you all this shit. And they even said from the beginning of episode 1, the plan is that the planet will be rendered unlivable. Like, they did not beat around the bush of like, hey, we want this mineral. There's no clean way to do this shit. There is no real, they even made it clear, like, the planet will be rendered unstable, unlivable, uninhabitable. They made it clear this isn't just us fracking for materials. This is us saying, hey, when we take this shit, the planet will be unlivable. Like, they kind of really drove home the...
I totally missed that, Brian.
Now
they
beat...
Oh.
What the hell is going on? God, man.
There were a lot of things happening.
I'm so mad that y'all made me watch this damn show, and I remember more of it than y'all. This is bullshit. This is absolute bullshit.
The way that you're talking about this show makes me think that you absolutely adored it.
Yeah.
No!
Yeah. The way, because you're pointing out like how well crafted it was from throughout the thing, right? Throughout the whole series, they've put in all these pieces to make it all make sense, right?
It's a masterfully crafted show with super intentional writing and all that put together.
It's masterful and boring.
I actually thought this season seemed to have more action. I often think of Savon's Star Wars critique. It's like, make it Star Wars. Like, where's the blasters? Where's the fun stuff? And I actually felt like this season took that into account a little bit more and added more. It felt like there was more action pieces in every episode than in season 1, and that we had more like thrilling moments. And so I was thinking maybe this will win Savon over. Apparently not.
We got Star Wars Tiananmen Square, which, like, I'm glad they went there, but
which is wild.
Yeah,
we also got like Star Wars rape scene. Like,
yeah, I was just like, oh, cool, and Star Wars drug abuse.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
We have a whole character arc of a woman who's almost sexually assaulted, has been tortured the previous season, and is now coping with substances to get back on her game before being basically manipulated to get revenge by her handler so that she could be on her game to get off the drugs and back out into being a guerrilla terrorist. Like, what the hell is going on right now?
She revenge kills her torturer.
How did she even find it? Whatever.
That was like a dope moment, but yeah, me too. I was like, huh?
It just
like, out of nowhere.
Had to take him out the picture so he wasn't in Rogue One.
But yeah, I mean, you love people walking away in the cool dead of night with a giant explosion in the background.
It was
like,
badass.
Come on, that's good stuff.
What I liked about
fun.
It didn't necessarily make sense that it needed to happen or how they could do it, but it did make sense in that it was a sense of closure and healing for her. Right, because she had been struggling so much that it was like, short of going to therapy, this was her moment of.
They
don't have those in the
kill your
Empire.
Enemies.
Yeah.
That's the lesson here. F a
right?
therapist.
Like,
just get out and revenge yourself.
I can sleep better knowing that I don't have this guy who's out there in the world doing this to other people or who could come after me anymore. And so that to me does make a little bit of sense. And that she has Andor by her side doing it, right? Cassian is with her and helps her do it. And it brings them back together.
To push the button.
Sure.
All right. I guess we've talked a lot about fascism, so we don't necessarily need to talk more about that. I did when you guys were talking about the fascism and how it sort of like slowly crept on, and it required all of this intentional upkeep and kind of like design, that the rebellion is also having these same things happen to build itself up, to become more of a cohesive thing, to negotiate between the different factions, right? And all of these things that need to happen. And at the end of the day, it's still messy, right? Like, Luthen is still not on good terms with the main rebellion anymore. Cassian and Vel both leave Luthen's sphere of influence and join the like proper, quote unquote, proper rebellion. And Saw Gerrera is still, quote unquote, too extreme for them and is still kind of doing his own thing, even though at the end of the day they want the same thing. They're not all in agreement about how to get there. But there's still intentionality about how they're building it. Like, Bail is being intentional, Mon Mothma is being intentional, especially by the end of the arc of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they're putting everything together in a really organized way, and you have to do that. And I think the weird juxtaposition, not weird, the intentional juxtaposition was that the rebellion had to get its hands dirty in order to get to where it needed to go. If it only fought in terms of non-violence and it only did counter like propaganda or whatever, it would have never gotten to the point where it could defeat or even go head to head with the Empire at all. And that's like an interesting question, because we always talk about in current day that your means of protest have to be on a different level, right? It cannot be the same as the tools, right? Like Luthen kind of says in season 1, like, I have to use the tools of my enemy, right, to defeat them. But it's like, it makes me question, even just like on a real level, like, do you actually need to use these like underhanded methods to get to where you need to go in order to like have a better possibility tomorrow? Or does it lead you down the path of like, well, you actually just recreated the same system that you were trying to overthrow, if you don't do it in, quote unquote, the right way, right? Or the MLK way.
MLK way, like I'm about to say, the MLK way wasn't the quote unquote right way either. Like there's well,
now it's considered the right way, right? The non-violent
people don't like people
protest.
People hate highway protests. Nah, I vehemently disagree about that one. Like, I think the whole I don't think there's been a single rebellion in history that was won by the quote unquote right way.
Yeah, right. And I think Tony Gilroy is well aware of this. He's heavily researched in a lot of rebellions just because he enjoyed it himself. Right. And so when people tell us today that violence isn't the answer, or we can't do these things to protest against incoming fascism or against those who are like neo-Nazis and stuff like that, it's like, well, like, how do you can't actually not have violence at some point, right? It doesn't mean that should be your first go-to, but the show is clear that like you probably do have to have some violence in order to get somewhere at some point.
I don't think I can think of any immediate political revolution or change that did not. People forget the Civil Rights Act didn't pass because of MLK. It passed after he got shot, because after his death, there were lots of race riots and things happening. And then that is what helped push through the Civil Rights Act. It wasn't a lot of the MLK kumbaya. It was the people were so pissed about his death afterwards that the civil unrest made the government be like, all right, man, look, man, shit's getting ugly. But it wasn't until violence was on the table that people really got their asses in gear.
Yeah.
And they deliberately put people on the front lines in civil disobedience demonstrations to get beat, right? Like to have violence enacted upon them to elicit a response from other people, right? Like in the same way, maybe not in the same way, but like similar to how Luthen was thinking, right. Like, okay, Gorman's gonna get toasted,
right?
But that is good for the rebellion.
Overall, right?
Yeah,
it brings more people to their side.
Yes,
as
people see what they're doing.
The Empire is bad, right? It highlights how bad the Empire is.
They literally said we are Gormans. The galaxy
get cracked by cops.
They literally said the galaxy is watching. Like that was them saying that. Which, okay, I gotta come out with my hot take. This might upset some folks back home or whatever, but I gotta talk my piece. Maybe I'll get canceled, but I gotta just say it.
Be confident and be wrong about it.
I'm not going to be wrong because I feel very right about this. I loved how they did the portrayal of rebel groups and guerrillas and insurgencies and the fascism, and I think that was one of the strongest parts of the shows. But I was very disappointed that Star Wars leaned back into the very disappointing trope of all humans in space are white or white-coated. I just got to
everybody on Gorman is
I just gotta call a spade a spade. There was things about Andor I really liked, but this was a very white show. And whatever, I could suspend my disbelief if maybe it took place in Europe during a period peacetime. But I'm sorry, in a show that's about an infinite amount of space planets and aliens, I just don't think that like there's an excuse to be still doing that outside of just trying to know that you got to win the image battle with audiences, right? Especially when you talk about the literal empire and imperialism, the main groups that were the targets of it were minority and indigenous groups. Black, people who will become the people from Africa, people in East Asian countries. And like, there's so many cultures and parts in the world that have had rebel fights against empires through guerrilla warfare and analogs
all
of
of
happening
Central
with
and
Gore.
South America.
Yes, yeah. Like there's so much. But
Vietnam.
So for them to just lean into the World War II very white French aesthetic was, I thought, a little disappointing. Not to say that it's not a strong parallel, but there are other parallels that I think could have also have driven that point home. And there was just a point where I'm seeing all this fascism rise up against the Empire stuff, and it's all just a lot of white folks. And I just think for Star Wars, where it's a show that's about aliens and how aliens specifically are the subject of racism in the Star Wars universe, like that's a whole thing of the Empire being xenophobic against them, all of that. It just feels like a very missed opportunity with the cast, whoever was in charge of casting, of we have themes of rebellions and all of that, but also this show is overwhelmingly white. Like, yeah. I just thought that was a missed opportunity. The farming plan, and I'm just saying, and if you're going to portray a certain culture, fine, and I get that you want to have a unified aesthetic for that, but it didn't have to be white French coded. Like that, they could have easily have had that same accent, but the people all just have, it's just one of those. They're just multiracial, because in humans it doesn't really matter, right? You could have easily have had that been equal parts Middle Eastern, black, white, all this, and then every point about their making, and even the French World War II parallel still would have held up perfectly fine. But there was just a moment where I'm just like, man, so we in space and Star Wars, all these planets, and they've got barely any black or Asian people. Like,
you're mostly talking about Gorman.
Yeah, but really the show at large too.
Even,
I think the Rebels are guilty
planet,
of it too.
Right?
The farming planet, and maybe it felt like an intention. Yeah, maybe it was an intentional design choice with some of the Empire. Maybe they leaned into having it older white folks, but there's a point where it's like every faction is overwhelmingly white, and that starts to feel a little disappointing in a show that's heavily about anti-imperialism and how colonialism F's over indigenous groups and what fighting back looks like when you have a show where you can literally invent and make up any culture you want. They said, let's do the World War II French.
I think that's a very valid, like, pointing out that this show did that. I think you might have like logistical reasons why it happened, but the show has
not enough black people, not enough minorities, not enough blacks and Asians. Like,
yeah, I mean, they shot it.
Good people of color actors.
No, they shot this in England and they shot this in.
You don't say.
Canada, is that right? Something like that. So like you're in very white countries, right? And not
also
to say
not.
Not to say that there aren't people of color there or whatever, but like if I wonder if it's just like. When they're like, we're hiring extras, and like these are the people that showed up, they're like,
I don't think so.
I think it's we got to make it fit.
It felt very deliberate. Like they're really trying to make this France, right?
Yes, for sure. They're definitely trying to make it.
They're
France.
definitely invoking World War II. Like I think it's. I agree with Savon.
But
like,
that doesn't explain.
Very deliberate.
That doesn't explain Ferrix or the farming.
Hey. For the record, y'all, this is bigger than Star Wars, right? This is a trope throughout lots of media where in fictional worlds, white is just kind of the default, where
for sure.
You don't really question it. Oh, we're in space. It's a space story. And they're on planet Verma. It's the same reason everybody on, what's that planet in effing MCU? The same reason everybody on Xandar's white. Just like, so we just got this alien planet with all this civilization.
The only times when
people.
Shows or movies have a multiracial cast is because it is very deliberate. Like somebody's actively trying to make it that
absolutely.
way.
And they could have done it here, absolutely.
It's just disappointing. It's just disappointing to see Star Wars still kind of fall into the, at least in my opinion, the humans are white default trope that I'm not a fan of, especially in a non-period piece story where that is a relevant part. You could easily have kept everything about the Gormans and the writing and their story exactly the same, but literally just pick chunks of the audience and made them a different color. And every other point, including the World War II analogy, still would have landed just fine. Like I said, I'm just more conscious of, okay, cool. Is this like a default white world? Like, is this just like, okay, everyone's white? That's the baseline. And then everything else is different or othered. But again, there just shouldn't be minorities in space. Like how many black and Asian folks we saw? Like what? They had Saw Gerrera, who's a cameo.
There's woman who's like ambiguous. There's that other rebel that died, the South Asian one.
Yeah, and Andor and Bix are Latino.
Yeah, which in fairness,
they're like also like kind of white passing.
Yes, but they're also Latino.
Yeah, but that still feeds
into right woman.
Yeah, but it still feeds into the larger thing. Like, okay, they have shows that have black folks, but they still lean into the most light-skinned black person they could find. Like, it still is a larger pattern. Again, I don't want to nitpick that because it doesn't take away from the writing of what the show was going for, but disappointing to see a show that's supposed to be so anti-imperialist, anti-colonialism, not have stronger parallels to groups that were historically the basis of it, especially since they did draw inspiration from history to make that point.
Yeah, and I don't know much about it, but like they could have done like more parallels to the Haitian Revolution, which had a lot of like black folks, right? Like Afro-Caribbean folks that live there.
I think they just don't want to. I think they don't want to admit that like the U.S. is the empire, right? Like is an imperial power and has done this in many countries.
Oh, well, I saw a clip that George Lucas was like totally like, yeah, I mean, we do this too.
I mean, Lucas wasn't subtle. I mean, Star Wars is literally about the Vietnam War. About the Vietnam War.
Totally. But none of the Asian people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But hell, even the OG Star Wars was a little better about having the Rebel Alliance have lots of visible aliens, forward-facing aliens and stuff. Not to say that the Rebels in the 70s movie wasn't still white, but hell, I'll give them a bigger pass in the 70s because at least the Rebels in the 70s had alien diversity amongst them to show, hey, we're a ragtag collective of this. But I felt like in that sense they regressed a little bit. Disappointing, but it's a nitpick I just can't leave out because if you don't point it out, people just kind of internalize that white is the default for stuff. And it's like, hey man, you can push back on that. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. There was always like aliens part of the rebellion, like the rebel forces, the X-Wing pilots, right? Were always a little bit different. All right.
It's a trap. That guy.
The OG, Admiral Akbar.
I love that line. Okay. So I don't know. Overall, what did we think? I know you guys aren't quite done with it. I
Would
thought
you like to talk about your feelings on the conclusion?
Feelings on the conclusion?
Yeah. I mean,
you guys have.
I'm
you guys
okay
seen...
with you spoiling it for me.
Okay.
I don't know if that's okay with Savon.
Spoiler alert: the Rebels end up getting blown up later down the line. Anyway, so all of this is for the record. This story ends with them. Everyone
Andor
loses
dies.
still.
Did you see the? Oh, sorry, have you guys seen the parts about Clea, like where we learn a little bit more about her backstory?
I have not.
Have not. Okay.
Can't remember.
So in the last couple episodes, you get a little bit more about Clea. Not a ton, but a little bit more, and it fleshes her character out more. And the big spoiler for you guys are gonna watch it. I don't know. Are you gonna watch it?
I'm gonna watch it. That way I can be informed when I call it boring. I can say, I watched the whole thing. I know it's boring. I finished it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the last few episodes won't change that for you. It's still good, and it's still it's good to see the next level because you're on 8, so you'll see like kind of the next patch of rebellion life, and where they're fully now the rebellion is a little bit more of a working machine. Okay. But just I think it works well. It spends a little bit too much time for my taste wrapping up loose ends to make them fit into Rogue One at the very end. Which like it's fine. I mean, they wanted to make sure that they like dovetailed really nicely together. But in some ways, like I wish they just kind of left enough of a time gap where you're like, that's fine. Like things probably happened in between that like made the situation change a little bit. We get to see Mon Mothma with her like really short haircut, and she's kind of more of a leader in the Rebel Alliance. Bail Organa is a Rebel Alliance leader. But we get to see a cool like rescue sequence, and then kind of a trapped sequence where they're fighting off some stormtroopers or some soldiers. I don't know. I did enjoy how it wrapped up, and there was a lot of tension. I think this whole series did a great job of building up tension and then letting us see how it resolved. I was super stressed with like all the Gorman stuff. I was super stressed in the last, few episodes. Like, how are they going to get out of it? The most stressful scene was when Clea is trying to dismantle the listening device in one of the artifacts, while I think Krennic is in the room, and you're like, oh my God, they're going to get caught. Like everybody's going to die here. And Lonnie is like, I'm going to leave. I got to go. And she's like, sit your fucking ass down and stay right the fuck there. I was like, whoa, like Clea, you are like got the cojones. And so I don't know. I love that scene so much because I was so stressed. I was like, are they gonna get caught? I can't believe it. What a way to be undone. And she just suns him and says, no, motherfucker, you listen to me right now. You're gonna stand right there, and I'm gonna get this thing out. We're gonna do a great job here,
And make sure you memorize all these details about this artifact.
Yeah.
You will be tested.
Do your homework.
Yeah, we cannot leave this behind. So that's a great foreshadowing, I think, for the last set of episodes where it's like she is actually a bigger player than it kind of seemed throughout the thing. Because it kind of a lot of it seems like she's the assistant, right? That Luthen's the mastermind. And she is, but she's a little bit more of a partner in the last 3, where you get to see like, oh, actually she is actually more of a partner than they made it seem at first, which is kind of a cool thing for her, I think. Yeah, and then it puts us back on Yavin 4, and we're ready to roll into into the to Rogue One.
Yeah, I don't love that this is the thing with prequels, right? Like they always have to try to shoehorn something into the thing that it is
already
predating,
that is
right?
building up to.
And like, so to me, the one big glaring error on that front was the whole storyline about the droid that Cassian picks up at the end of the Gorman Massacre.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
that was dumb.
Grown.
You wasn't rocking with that.
You were just trying to give us the backstory for the comic relief character from Rogue One. Like, I don't give a shit, man. Yeah. Like, these people just got massacred, and you're just like totally undercutting it with this stupid tie-in. Like, man, I don't know. Like, have you guys watched Rogue One since Andor came out? But like, I have tried, and they're totally different. They're totally different properties.
Oh, really?
Even though they're related and by the same guy,
Rogue One's way more chill.
Yeah, it's more of a Star Wars movie, and like Tony Gilroy totally got a different green light for Andor. He's like, I get to make this dark and grimy and dirty and political and stuff like that. So like them trying to do this cute droid storyline, like get out of here. I know what's going on. I know what's going on, but we don't need this.
Yeah, I will say one thing that is challenging about a show like Andor is when you try to do something that's very tonally different in a universe that kind of has established technology and rules that actually do matter in terms of how things work. I do think that can be a little tricky to work around. Mainly because I think Star Wars has always played the technology part a little fast and loose, right? It's more
whatever
fantasy.
It needed to be. They had technology for it.
Star Wars is more fantasy than science fiction, and I think Andor at times leaned more into the science fiction portion of it. And I do think there were parts where like the world maybe struggled to decide what the level of technology is and what you're supposed to be doing with it, if that makes sense. So like how much, how sometimes you see characters can communicate, in Star Wars, we've seen characters communicate across the galaxy with minimal issue. Sometimes it's with a lot of issue. Sometimes blockades do stuff. Sometimes they don't. And there were points in the show where I'm like, this doesn't feel like it should be as hard as it needs to be based on how we've seen characters interact with technology in Star Wars in the past. But I think that is a limitation of the tone of the story, because things that otherwise you can just kind of hand wave or ignore because that's not really plot relevant is here because things that frankly you don't think about are now being talked about, so you have to take it into account, right? Now, okay, so there's
what are you thinking of specifically?
Okay, so there's no like instant hyperspace travel. Star Wars going from planet to planet was never really an issue. People go from one to another, and it's like, oh, we're going here. Oh, Obi-Wan goes to Coruscant, then the Camino, then the Geonosis, and he's just galaxy hopping as if he's just catching the metro. And on Andor, they established that moving planets is really hard. So there's parts where my suspension of disbelief makes it hard to believe that in a world with all this tech, like the Empire can find people hiding on like a big ass farming planet. Like there were moments of like the technology felt like it was as convenient as the plot needed it to be, which isn't a big deal in a regular Star Wars movie, but I think is a bigger deal in a show like this where, frankly, it matters because it actually affects how characters can navigate the plot, right? Because technology limits how the rebels communicate, how they can travel, all of that. So there were parts where I didn't bump
at any of that.
I don't know. There's parts where, Andor can't get from one place to another because it's so difficult because of the Empire and they're tracking all communications. Then other moments where he can get his stolen TIE fighter and just kind of go from A to B and doesn't have any issues. And it's like,
the TIE fighter thing
is it hard? Is it hard to get off planet or is it easy to get off planet? Is it hard to be found? Is it not hard to be found? I just found the whole idea of them finding, like, even the Empire doing like an audit after 10 years on a farming planet, and they're able to just scan and pick up people who are undocumented. And it's like, I don't know. This feels it feels like this shouldn't actually be a conflict in the plot because it's Star Wars and Star Wars just has a tendency of making planets feel like a city, and it can really F with the sense of scale of what the actual size of the conflict is, Like, it takes place on a planet, but you're in one city on that planet the whole time. So it's like, they really couldn't hide out. Like Bix and them really couldn't hide out on the farm planet. Like it's a whole planet, and y'all couldn't hide at all.
And the Empire don't even Cassian's
be in
a
here.
TIE fighter.
And meanwhile, but then they also can break into your boy's office and execute him without a. There's just moments of like, this show would have still been better if it just didn't take place in the Star Wars universe, so that they could not have to abide by some of these Star Wars rules that it feels like they had to write around rather than work with naturally. It's a relatively small nitpick, but like, it's what happens, in my opinion, when you take a serious IP or a not serious IP and make it serious.
I had no problem with any of that.
You know, it's like you watch a Marvel movie where they don't care about the technology. It's like, all right, cool. Now, if you have one that explores the tech in depth, now questions that weren't really a big deal become a big deal. And it's like, oh, we didn't think about this because y'all didn't care, but now that it matters, now I'm thinking about it, and now it's kind of like, there's just parts where I was like, dude, they should have this. The technology should not be the obstacle here.
I didn't think that the technology was too much of an obstacle in this one.
Half the theme is them getting listened to and bugged and monitored all the time. That's like a prevailing theme, is that no form of communication is safe because the Empire is so, ever present. Like, I thought that was one of the biggest themes of the show, which isn't a thing in other Star Wars, really.
Maybe they figured it out by then. Figured out how to scramble their signal, encrypt it. I don't know. Overall, I'm going 10 out of 10.
Ugh.
Loved it.
You don't even remember half what happened.
That's all right. It's still awesome. The way that they built up
over here.
Yeah, the way that they built up characters, the way that every episode had me just like glued to my seat and glued to the screen, and I couldn't look away. And I think I give them in some ways, Brian was talking about how they had to sort of make it shoehorn into what comes next. And in some ways I give them extra credit for that, because like that is so difficult to tell an interesting story where the ending is known by the audience. That I don't know. I was like, I don't know where this is going. This is so cool. And like, it didn't matter that like there weren't life or death stakes for certain characters, because we know that they're going to survive. Like, we know that Mon Mothma survives. She shows up in Rogue One. She shows up in Episode 4. And yet her escape from the Senate is still like, how are they going to get away? What are they going to do? Like, what is the like, how are they going to get out of this pickle becomes the question. And I think the show does a great job with that. Like, it didn't bother me that like, oh, I know she doesn't get killed here, or like maybe she gets jailed. Like, we don't know, or captured. Right. And then survives later. But there's just some like cool stuff that happened in this show. And I think the fact that like it did reflect real world rebellions or real historical rebellions in certain ways, and like pulled from all of these like experiences that made the world feel real. The fact that they used huge gigantic sets that were not in the volume, they weren't just LED screens, like that, where actors could walk 5 feet and then they had to stop, like all of these things added up to a show that felt really cool. I kept thinking about like everything, especially Episode 8, where the Gorman Massacre goes down. I mean, that one stuck with me for a while. We're currently watching like The Last of Us 2, and I've been surprised at how invested I am in Andor relative to The Last of Us. I think Last of Us is great, but I was expecting Andor for me to be like, oh, it's like a good show, but like I'm really still all about The Last of Us. And to me, it's been kind of either equal or slightly ahead of my reaction to Last of Us so far. And I've just been like I really enjoyed watching all 12 episodes of this one. And, Mike and I were talking, we were like, oh, I'd love to go rewatch this again. And I would actually love to go rewatch this again. I don't usually rewatch shows that often. But this is one that I would consider jumping back into and watching again, just to pick up on all those things that like I missed. So 10 out of 10, bros, 100%.
Wow. The teacher giving a perfect score. I totally agree with you. This definitely feels like a show that I would appreciate rewatching. Especially part of it is that like I've been watching on low volume, so not to wake my dog. But
headphones.
And like I actually had the captions on. Usually I'm like so anti-caption. I'm like, really militant about it. But for this in this case, I needed it. But even aside from that, I do think like the show is so detail oriented, right? Just like the little customs that they have for the Gormans, for the Chandrila wedding, for the way things are carried out in the ISB and the set, like just like tiny little details. They're all so interesting and fascinating part of the world building. And I think this show, more so than many others out there, has like just such a grand scale of storytelling about worlds and what happens to worlds, or civilizations rather. And like, to me, that, that is like ambitious storytelling that is just really exciting to see. But also the way they execute it by going deep in the trenches with the individuals that are pulling the levers on society, makes it such an intriguing watch. But I cannot give it a 10 out of 10 though. However, when you got this droid storyline that does not belong in there, when you got like a TIE fighter that is just like a stolen TIE fighter that's stolen and flying across the galaxy with very little repercussion, and when Mon Mothma is at a wedding for like 1,200 years, like what the fuck, man?
It's a 3-day wedding, and
but that TIE fighter thing is interesting. It never had any like greater purpose than to set him down in the middle of the two rebel, sparring factions.
It was a really cool set piece when he stole it. I love the fake flirting with the officer.
Oh, the gag where he goes backwards.
The gag, yeah, he's him going backwards, and then even landing in with those rebels who I felt were like, that was the portrayal, Tony Gilroy's portrayal of liberals today in America. Like, they're just all squabbling with each other. They don't know what's going on. Like, what do we do? And
yes,
that was actually just your typical Call of Duty match.
I felt like I was being trolled. That was all like good fun, but kind of led nowhere. So I think I still think this show is like really well made, and beautifully written. The dialogue is top notch. Like, so there's so many quotables throughout both seasons of Andor, but I got some quibbles from this season as compared to last. So I'm going with like a gentle like 88 on this one. But like I said, I would definitely rewatch this, and I just might actually if I find some time.
Savon.
Yeah, I give this an 8 out of 10. Maybe like a 7.8. All right. 7.8. This is the epitome of like something that's, well put together, well acted, all that stuff. I said it before, production value through the roof.
You said masterful earlier too. And then now you're going to be like, I don't like masterful.
It is masterful. But masterful don't mean nothing if it's boring.
It's not boring.
I don't think it can be masterful.
Ultimately, I just, no. I think, I look at this the way I look at like a rapper who's really good at weaving similes and metaphors and rapping really technical and being able to fit lots of syllables in. It's like, this is hard. It takes a lot of skill. You clearly busting your ass and work at your craft. All that is true. And at the same time, hey, yo, anybody trying to hear that shit? When I want to sit down after a long day of work, I don't want to hear rap guy Eminem, even if I can objectively recognize that this is really talented and talent, takes talent and it's hard to do. And that's how I feel about Andor a lot of the time. It's like, it's good, but I didn't come here for this. And I've said this about season 1. I watch Star Wars for certain things, and Andor just by design does not deliver on any of those things. I think Andor would be better if it just wasn't a Star Wars show.
He wants
and it
more.
Could be its own
you want an
IP.
Acolyte.
He wants more shows about Leia.
No, not that, but like all the other. But I think there's a very clear tonal shift, even for the ones that aren't good, of the other Star Wars.
You like Star Wars Visions, which is tonally different.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy that too. But point is, Andor's boring. Like the cool stuff about when I was a kid, the things that got me into Star Wars are all the things that Andor leans away from. And more power to you. But I'm not the only person who feels this way. And you got to recognize that, like, yo, this is a good show. But I don't think
you're right.
A Star Wars fan, I think most Star Wars fans probably aren't going to watch this because that's not what they was watching Star Wars for in the beginning of the spot.
But Star Wars fans are notoriously shitty, so it's okay.
Yeah, this is exactly why I like Andor.
I know, but
Star Wars for adults.
I know. I'm not saying that y'all are wrong for having that stance. Yeah. I'm agreeing. I get why, but y'all need to understand exactly why. Cool. The same way this is like perfect for y'all. there's a whole another faction of folks who it's going to be the inverse for the same reasons that y'all do like it. Like,
well, we don't care about the factions. Remember, we only care about your opinion.
All right, I'm part of that faction. I gave my opinion. It's
different types of rebels out there.
It's well put together, but I don't think it's enthralling and it draws me in the way Star Wars stuff does. I think them trying to tie it to Star Wars or it being tied to Star Wars hurts more than it helps. I'd rather it just be its own thing because now you gotta. Because this is like a sci-fi show that doesn't even want to be sci-fi. Like it's
Star
clear
Wars has never been sci-fi though. It's okay.
Okay, it's clear that this doesn't want to be a fantasy show. This wants to be. It feels like this is a really dope show that was forced to be a Star Wars show, and it would be
it's
much
a political
more,
thriller.
Yeah, and it's like cool. Yeah. Don't like glue that to the Star Wars IP. Let it just be it. I think Andor could just be its own thing and tell a story where you're not having to make callbacks and references to the Star Wars movies that it frankly doesn't, feels connected to, but also tonally is super disconnected from, right? Like. But my other main thing, and I had to really think about this watching through Andor, is that I'm going to be honest with you. Knowing just that the 6 movies that come after this kind of just makes me start to lose a little interest in like the stakes of the plot because I know that the characters aren't going to die. But more importantly, I know how the larger story ends up going, and that makes me less invested because it really does just end up being the rebels win, and then shortly after... they lose again because the First Order comes and they lose again. It's like, oh, so we're doing all this shit. But within like 30 years, this is all about to be board reset. And that kind of makes me also just lose interest knowing that we're building all this up to know that at the start of episode 7, they blow up Coruscant or something. It's like, oh, okay. All this is building up to kind of just like being inconsequential to the larger Star Wars story. And that's just
a Star Wars problem.
Yeah, but exactly. But that's why Andor doesn't need to be a Star Wars show by trying to shoehorn it into the Star Wars like world. There's limits that the story had to have placed on it that I think it's not the story's fault, but that's why you have these references to the droid that you don't care about in the movie because they have, because you have other stuff you have to make connections to, or you have to reference characters. You have, now you have to do homework, but like. This isn't a show that I think is going to draw in new Star Wars fans because you still got to do the homework of knowing the previous shit.
But then why watch any Star Wars, right? Like, why watch any new extension of this franchise? Because they're all going to suffer from that very same problem. That all of it is pretty inconsequential because it's, it's following the rhythms of IP rather than story.
Because
right?
those stories...
we just need a reason to make more of these movies.
Because you can still have stories that don't have to tie into the larger Star Wars story that can still take place to where that story still has its own weight and consequence, but it doesn't have to be the consequence of the Rebel Alliance versus the Galactic, the Galactic Civil War. That's really what I'm getting at, is that when stories start to tie back into the Galactic Civil War, I start to lose interest because you know how it plays out and it's not even a satisfying play out, right? It's not like, this is a really dope build up to something later that they show. It's like, oh, no, this is showing for shit for movies that we don't like. So
yeah, and Acolyte could have been some of that.
Yeah, but I'm talking just, I don't know, 5 through 6. Andor is just held down by being shoehorned into a universe that I feel like it doesn't really want to be a part of.
I didn't feel that way at all.
It doesn't want to talk about. It doesn't want to lean into the badass starfighters and space cruisers and Jedi and the Force and all, and that's fine.
Yeah,
but like if that's
I'm knocking it for that too. The introduction of the Force with Andor, saying that he's like the messenger. Thumbs down on that one.
What do you mean?
We
did not.
Yeah, any chosen one shit, I'm always immediately out on that. I'm like, chosen one.
Why is Andor the chosen one? We did not need that storyline.
The whole point is that anybody can be a hero if you choose to rebel, and then undercutting it with, "Oh, you're the chosen one." All right, cool. So the rest of us is just fodder.
Yeah, like this.
Bet.
The rebellion doesn't matter now.
Oh, I didn't.
You got Andor. He's the messenger. Whatever.
He's the chosen one. Once you start doing chosen one shit,
did she call him the messenger?
Yeah, yes. Basically. They basically all but said he's like a prophecy, chosen one, whatever.
He's meant to be here.
Andor's a good show. It just
I thought she was. You're talking about the Force healer?
Yeah, the Force healer.
I thought she was saying, and maybe I missed the second part of it, but to me, she was just saying like, you carry so much like pain and energy and like a determination that like that she can feel the Force within him. Not that like he is being driven by the Force, or that the Force is
what
out there
difference
protecting
does that make?
him.
That's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing, bro. Either way, she had some clear little bit of Force connection and was able to recognize, hey, man, you have a higher calling and you need to like lock in. And either way, I was like, okay, cool. Nobody asked for that.
Yeah, I mean, he also doesn't believe her. I mean, right? Like, we've known, even if you didn't call it the Force, like, he's clearly someone who is about survival and then becomes more in line with the rebels, and then clearly firmly believes.
But that's everybody.
Like
that's the whole
Wouldn't
Rebel
it be
Alliance.
more tonally consistent if he did that out of conviction for the rebel cause?
Yeah, and he does.
Not because, and for Bix also to leave for the rebel cause, not just because like some voodoo Force healer.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
voodoo
didn't
in that way, but like, you know what I mean? It's just like,
I didn't take it that way. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. I didn't.
We did not
take it that way.
need the one storyline in this when we're talking about how rebellions are made in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, that actually, the whole chosen one for rebellion definitely undercuts it.
I think that's fair. I chose to ignore that. I didn't. Yeah, I don't think
10 out of 10 for Wesley.
Still 10 out of 10. All right, friends, that'll wrap it up. I don't know. I really love this. I think if you haven't watched this show, do it. It's amazing.
It's a great sleep aid.
Unless you're a Grinch like Savon and Kendall, then don't watch it. But
it's the best Star Wars thing ever made.
Enjoy your Duel of the Fates episode 1 and episode 3. You know, I have the higher ground, and be happy with that. All right, friends. Next show, we're supposed to talk about Sinners. So if you haven't seen
Wes
that,
didn't go see.
That's your homework. Yeah.
I wonder why.
Because it's the end of the school year and things are popping off.
But you had time for 12 episodes of Andor. 10 out of 10.
But I can watch that at home. So, friends, go watch Sinners. Tell us what you think, and then we'll talk about it on our next show. See you later. Bye.